Mr. Clark, you ready?
Let me tell you something, man. We can sit
Yeah, we
here
got
all day.
enough.
We'll be here till the moonshine of trying
Okay.
to make provisions for everybody. It just doesn't make sense. We go ahead and try.
Hey, Max, are you ready in the back?
That one be exempt.
Oh, he doesn't. Okay. All right. We're ready to return from our recess.
From my understanding,
Before we want to do some housekeeping duties, there are a couple of items we wanted to bring up regarding two public. Oh, you need to do roll call? Okay.
Alexander. Here. Councilmember Hilliard.
here.
Councilmember Hoyt. Councilmember O'Quinn.
Here.
Councilmember Smitherman. Councilmember Williams. Councilmember Woods. Councilmember Abbott. President Parker.
Here. Mr. Clerk, we've got two items that are addendums, 89 and 90. One is a resolution declaring support for Legion Field being designated as a coronavirus drive-through testing site. As you know, that's something that's been in the news. We just want to see that Legion Field be considered a potential site. At proper time, I'd like to move for that resolution to be adopted.
Second.
Give me 1 second to put the other one in. I'm sorry. So you want to take them both at the same time?
Yeah, the other one is a resolution where the coronavirus pandemic crisis response serves as a public purpose, and the City of Birmingham funds will be administered to pay for goods and services in accordance with Section 3-1-7 of the General Code of the City of Birmingham. Dr. Quinn had mentioned about you want to talk about a little bit about the mask, the N95 mask. And so in the event that there's an effort to go out and ask the public to participate, we just want to have a public purpose in place as relates to these two items. So that's addendum item 89 and 90. So Mr. Clerk, we're ready to vote on both of them.
All right, 1 sec. So we're going to make 89 Legion Field.
Yeah, and 90 is the public purpose for
All right, we're going to make 90 the public purpose. Councilor Hoyt's back. Okay.
We're just doing some housekeeping duties. This is about the couple. We are back in. We're just doing some of these public purposes real quick.
All right, we're ready. How would you like to vote, Councilor Hoyt, on these two items? Because I have you out. The voting.
This is about the in the event we do an event or something around coronavirus and stuff. Yeah. Okay.
So we got Councilors O'Quinn, Smitherman. Yes. Okay. Ms. Abbott's still out. Councilor O'Quinn, you here, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Both of those items passed. Thank you. There's one other item before, Mr. Mayor, we call you up. Councilor Smitherman, you want to add some comments and some things you want to talk about?
Well, this is really directed towards the public, but Senator Doug Jones and Congresswoman Sewell are writing a letter to Governor Ivey asking to extend the unemployment benefits to 6 months. And I was proposing to President Parker and Councilor Williams that we do the same to show support. I think that'll help a lot of our constituents right now where we're having a lot of layoffs and people who are unsure about their job situation. So, and also I asked my father, who's our senator, to talk to Governor Ivey directly. He's going to ask for 4 months.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Smitherman. I think that that is very apt and appropriate right now. I know that the citizens of not only Birmingham but all over the state of Alabama will be feeling the effects, the economic effects in terms of their personal household income when it comes to COVID-19. So I think that there is no time like the present to do so, and so thank you for spearheading that.
Okay, so you want to do a resolution now, or how do you want to handle that? What's your pleasure? Or you want to come back before we
Wait till
adjourn?
after,
Okay, we'll come back before you
yeah.
adjourn. Okay, all right. Does anybody else have any housekeeping duties real quick? Okay, all right. Just remind everybody, we're tomorrow morning, 9:30. So, Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon to this body, council. Ms. Bernard, one of the assistant city attorneys for the city of Birmingham, will be providing all of us with some documents in a minute based on the feedback she's received from several of you all, as well as from the community. So this is old, so you'll get the draft soon, but I think that's good in the sense that it allows me to have a conversation directly with you and speak directly to the public. I understand in the last few hours, many of us have received calls, many of us have received texts, and probably a couple people have received folks knocking on your door saying, what is this, what does this mean? So, Mr. President, and to your body, if you will allow me enough time to go as detailed as I need to, be very intentional about sharing what this is and explaining what this is and why it has to be this way, then I am sure even if everyone in this community can agree to this, they'll know why we are making this decision. And even if it's an unpopular decision, it is the right thing to do.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, if you just real quick. So I just want to make sure everybody understands what he's saying is the information we received earlier, the two versions, he said those we need to set aside because they're not what's going to be submitted. He has a substitute version that's coming. Attorney Bernard from the law department or Office of City Attorney will be bringing those documents down momentarily. Is that?
That's correct. So
Okay.
You can keep yours.
Yeah, so Kim, the information you have there, that's. Let's just use this right now. Kim is passed out, but there's going to be another version coming.
So believe it or not, there are not substantial changes to this at all. So we wanted to make sure what you all vote on is clear and in line, Mr. President. So if you allow me to proceed, Councilor Hort, trust me, this is satisfactory based on what you'll see in a minute. Not a lot of differences at all. If anything, gets added in a couple of words. So no substantial changes at all. Let me make that point very clear. I want to start with why. I woke up this past Saturday with a lot of conviction in my mind and my heart, just like a lot of you all are on where we are, that we are under a state of emergency. This is a health crisis, and we as leaders don't have the luxury to do two things. Simply wait and see what happens, or wait on other people to tell us what we should be doing on behalf of the residents we were elected to serve. And I want to give you a couple of examples. I want to tell you what some of the things I'm concerned and worried about. Saturday, it's easy to worry about what happens the next day, Sunday. If you have a church and you have a congregation of, let's say, 100 people, and let's say literally half the church, so 50 people are the ages of 65 plus, and they're in this church, and they're holding hands, and they're shaking hands, and they're hugging, and they're kissing, and one person has it and don't know they have it, and it spreads throughout that church, and all of a sudden you not only have a run on that church, but those same people can possibly have a run on the hospital, and they bring it back to their family, and they bring it back to their community, and they bring it back to their job. That type of worry and concern is no different than the worry and concern I have for the young men who are playing basketball in the park or any sport that they come in contact with each other, or for some young adults in a particular neighborhood that are playing dice and all of them are using the same dice, or the card game, they're playing spades or bid whiz, whatever. Any type of thing that's happening where people may be asymptomatic, don't know they have it, or possibly know they have it and won't do anything about it, as in isolate or separate themselves. We have to do everything necessary to prevent community spread. And so we are at a point where 11 days ago, again, we shared the words, we recommend, we recommend, we recommend. We used the words recommend, in declaring a state of emergency locally, we use the words recommend in our daily briefings. We need to now pivot from recommendation to full enforcement if the ultimate goal is to save lives. There's some other goals. We need to decrease and prevent a run on our hospitals that don't have enough ventilators. We need to prevent and decrease a run on our hospitals who may not have enough beds. I just shared some numbers with you all into the public earlier about where half the cases in Jefferson County. In one hospital at UAB, we know the numbers that already exist. And that is the opposite of flattening the curve. So we have to, at this point, show some will. There will always be pushback, but it is incumbent upon us to do the right thing, even if it's unpopular, especially if it saves lives. Let me remind this body that if a government doesn't do anything, whether at the local, state, or federal level, that its number one priority is public safety. And in a public safety health crisis, now is the time. So I think it's important that we go through this ordinance so people can know what is not, what exceptions and exemptions exist. The two top lines I want to remind people. One is that this is not in conflict with the Jefferson County Health Department. Another way to put that is this. If you are currently not on the non-essential list, then your business can continue. So that's the catch-all. All right? Manufacturing is not on that list. Logistics, chain supply is not on that list. Distribution is not on that list. Construction is not on that list. Utility is not on that list. Financial services is not on that list. All right? Law firms are not on that list. I can go on and on. So we're not adding, okay? We are not adding anything to the non-essential list. We are in constant contact with the Jefferson County Health Department, and we will never get out in front of them as it relates to shutting down any additional businesses. So I want to make this point clear and express it again. If you are a current employer that is open today in the city limits of Birmingham, and you are not on the non-essential list, then you as a current employer will remain open tomorrow, and your employees can report to work tomorrow. It does not get any plainer in language than that. Please tell me this body understands that before I move on to my next point. In addition to that, it's important we go through some of these. It's important to note is also this body, through its statutory power and the ability to pass ordinances, has been exercising a curfew law under local ordinance that's been in existence for many, many years, well over 10. And I know that if a curfew law that currently exists that can regulate one generation for certain times a day that certain generations can move about, then through your power you also can regulate all generations and all times a day. So we're not doing anything that's illegal. We're not usurping any power. We're not abusing any power. There's another point to make. This curfew shall not apply to public safety or emergency service activities. It shall not apply to law enforcement, fire and rescue services, and emergency management agencies. It shall not apply to first responders, crisis intervention workers, public health workers, emergency management personnel. It should not apply to emergency dispatchers, law enforcement personnel, and related contractors. This shall not apply to those in utilities, cable, telecommunication companies engage in activities necessary to maintain or restore utility, cable, or telecommunication services. It does not apply to construction, manufacturing. It does not apply to any existing small businesses that provide food. So again, another example. If your current small business is a restaurant and you are implementing curbside, walk-in, pickup, delivery, you can continue. But that's the same for any organization that is providing food. The convenience store, the corner store, the gas station, Walmart, any grocery store, Costco, Sam's, I can go on and on. Any essential food are deemed, foods, anybody that delivers foods, anybody that makes food is exempt. In addition to that, so is pharmacy, Walgreens, and CVS. I'm just giving examples. I really, really want to encourage everybody who can hear me that's not present to visit birminghamal.gov/coronavirus, birminghamal.gov/coronavirus, and read what the ordinance says. Because once you read it in detail, then I think a lot of people can calm down and understand what it means. But I will stand here as long as I need to explain why we are doing this. Now, these public spaces, our city right-of-ways, our city parks, out in the streets, out on our corners, we need to regulate that, and we need to enforce the activity that people are not taking seriously. In this document, we have shared, we totally 100% support solitary outdoor activity. You want to run, you want to bike, you want to walk, you want to hike, we encourage you to do that. But under no circumstances will there be any exceptions to group activity outside, because we have to enforce preventing community spread. That's in the document. In addition to that, this shall not apply to persons employed by the federal, state, county, or city government or their agencies working within the course and scope of their public service employment. Such employees shall follow any current or future directives regarding performance of their duties, including working from home, issued by their respective employers. This curfew/stay-at-home ordinance shall not apply to persons supplying or restocking businesses in order to provide essential services or products, i.e. home improvement, groceries, fuel delivery locations, pharmacy or other retailers offering emergency supplies, transportation of fuels, movement of equipment, and personnel of the provision of humanitarian support and movement of equipment necessary for the protection of critical infrastructure or public safety. Persons seeking essential services or commodities, this does not apply for those who are vulnerable to the most serious effect of the COVID-19 disease. In addition to that, those who are must remain at home unless seeking medical treatment. Mr. President and Council, here are other exceptions. People may lawfully leave their residence while this ordinance is in effect only to engage in the following activities: engage in certain activities, including without limitation, visiting a health or veterinary care professional, obtaining medical supplies.
Excuse me, where are you on the?
I am under the exceptions of E, number 2.
Under what again?
E2, it starts with essential activities.
All right, go ahead. Okay.
Again, these are exceptions. People may lawfully leave their residence while this ordinance is in effect to engage in the following activities: to engage, including without limitation, visiting a health or veterinarian care professional, obtaining medical supplies or medication, obtaining grocery items, additional in any travel related to providing care for minors, the elderly, dependents, persons with disabilities, or the vulnerable persons, returning to one's place of residence from outside the city, traveling to one's place of residence located outside of the city, traveling through the city from one location outside the city to another location, all shall be exempt. Outdoor activities, Mr. President and Council, want to read again. To engage in outdoor activity and recreation, provided that the recreational activity does not involve physical contact with other persons and individuals, and to comply with social distancing requirements, including without limitation, walking, hiking, running, cycling, use of scooters, roller skates, skateboards, or other personal mobility devices, indoor and outdoor playground for children, except those located within child care centers that have been deemed open by the Jefferson County Health Department, shall be closed for all purposes. Again, Mr. President, I think it's important that I repeat two things. If a business is currently open today in the city limits of Birmingham, and you are not on the non-essential list that has been deemed by the Jefferson County Health Department and closed, then your business will remain open tomorrow, and your employees, per that employer, shall report to work based on whatever establishment and protocol that employer has put in place. So we are not adding any new businesses to close that the health department has not added. I cannot restate that enough. At this point, I want to open it up for this body. I want to thank you for being patient, but I also want to thank you for co-leading on this topic. And I think there's something else I need to state. I had a long conversation with the governor's office. I understand the Attorney General's office has called our legal department. I understand there are a lot of other people that have reached out about this, and a lot of people have opinions and thoughts and concerns about what we're doing and why we're doing it and why are we doing it now. Again, I don't have to explain to anybody, Birmingham and Jefferson County doesn't have the luxury that the other 66 counties and other cities have in this state, which is what our hospital services is provided and the number of cases that currently exist. But I think there's something more important. I'm unaware of the COVID-19 coronavirus having any form of picking a place or person based on race, based on gender, based on political ideology, based on being a Republican or Democrat, or in the southern part of the state or any other part of the U.S. This is spreading all throughout America. And in our positions, we have two choices. Option one is to take the lead, be assertive, and do everything necessary from a public safety standpoint to protect the residents of this city. Or option two, do nothing and wait on other people and fall in line. I don't think option two is an option that we should choose as 10 people who have been sworn to protect the people of this city. And with that, Mr. President and Council, I open it up. That document is still on its way.
Yeah, figure out we'll just this way, because we need to operate off the new document. I mean, okay, we can do it. Let me see what.
Dialogue. It'll be here in a second.
Okay. All right, we'll start. I don't have my. Dr. Quinlis, you want to start there and y'all work your way around, or you got it? I was gonna ask you, since you're down front.
I'll start. I'm glad to start.
Okay. And then we'll work our way around. We'll just
I'm pretty
work our
sure
way around.
that every one of us, all 10 of us, got blown up over the last 3 hours. You know I've been on the phone and on email ever since we recessed, and primarily hearing from a lot of business folks. And the message that I'm telling them is, look, my interpretation of this is that it's not aimed at any businesses, just as what you were saying, that it's really aimed at the type of behavior that we observed over the weekend, where we had large congregations of folks who were acting as if they were on holiday. that there was nothing, going on in the world that might be a life-threatening situation, and that's what we're trying to address. And I would hate to be in this position and know that I had a tool available to me to prevent someone's loved one not being able to receive adequate medical care. If we don't act like this is a serious situation, that people's lives are at risk, that's what we're faced with, is our medical care facilities will be overwhelmed, and our loved ones may contract this illness and may need medical treatment. And if there's only so many ventilators, then some folks will not get adequate medical care. And the 10 of us are in a position to do something to try and prevent that from happening.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Are we testing? Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Let me first of all say, Mayor, you are on point and you're doing the right thing at the right time. And I welcome this legislation that we're about to talk about. In Italy right now, there is 69,176 cases, the last that we checked. There are 6,820 deaths. They have surpassed China already in their number of deaths. China sent a delegation to Italy, and the one thing that they said to them, this could have been prevented if people had self-quarantined themselves earlier on. 10% of this population that are ill and sick with the coronavirus in Italy will never recover. 10% will never recover. Without a doubt, where we are right now is the fact of saving lives. I love business. I chair economic development. I believe in this city, and I want it to thrive. But we want there to be some people to thrive with it. And our communities will be heavily affected. The healthcare system will be overwhelmed. Just the other day, Councilman Parker and several of the council people and ministers and business people from around the city, we had a conversation with our county health director. And his words were, we are about to be hit by a tsunami. A tsunami. Now, I don't know whether that rings a lot of bells to people, but he said our hospital system will be overwhelmed. He said this will be equal to World War II. Now, these are words that I heard come out of his mouth. If that don't scare you, I don't know what will. That we have no other choice but to put legislation such as this in place and move forward. You know, I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy representing the people. But if I was just set for this time and moment and never came back again and saved one life, I would be able to sleep. And I would honestly tell you, I didn't sleep well last night. I didn't sleep well until you called me. And I thought about it this morning. You talked about putting this in place. This is something that I've long wanted to happen because I knew that it would come to this point. We're acting right. This is the right thing to do, and there should not even be a thought about it. As long as the legal department, the health director is in line with it, we should make a move, and we shouldn't worry about what nobody else thinks about us. Let's make it happen. Let's get the job done. Let's save some lives. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and your team for providing us with this opportunity to address the pandemic and the safety of our citizens through this proposed document. I do want to say that I think all 10 of us have already said that we each did receive a slew of calls, texts, emails, or inquiries. So I thank the mayor for giving us this additional information and clarifying. Most of the questions that I received were addressed by residents as related to businesses, light manufacturing, and those type things. And so you clarified most of those questions. The only one remaining item, and I believe you also addressed, this is no different than what Dr. Wilson had already put out with the Jefferson County Health Department. So those essential or non-essential businesses are the same. One question that was posed is relationship to churches or organizations that provide food pantry or delivering the grab-and-go lunches, and that's the same thing. They are exempt, and I just want to be sure that those questions that have been raised to me were answered. So I do ask, as the other two counselors have asked, that if we could proceed and let's go about the business of keeping everyone safe. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, President Parker. Mayor Woodfin, you and I are both a member of the legal community, and so I've gotten a lot of calls from judges, attorneys, and Judge French. So I really want you, if you could, just clarify exactly how it pertains to attorneys, because I know that the Chief Justice has given us an order that there are certain hearings that we have to go to. I just want you to say on the record, tell them that.
Yes. Any business in the legal community that's currently operating and has not been put on a non-essential list can continue to operate tomorrow. Anything related to the courts is the same exception. They're exempt based on the Jefferson County Health Department not putting them on the list. So for those employers who own and operate a law firm, who are partners, as well as for their associates, that they can still continue to work.
Okay. And also, I think it's right what Councilor Hilliard said. I don't know if it's because it hasn't hit home for people, but even though my friend's uncle lives in New York, he actually died from the coronavirus. Like, he was the NBC man who caught it and he died. Like, this is like something real. Like this, I guess I just want to tell people my age and younger, like, this isn't a conspiracy. Like, this isn't something that the government is doing, just because. This is real, and it's not really about you. It's about making sure, like what Mayor Woodfin was saying, helping out your grandparents or helping out your parents, really, because this isn't like any other virus. Like, there are certain viruses where you don't show any symptoms, but you can carry on to other people. And, I think, I can only speak for myself, I would rather do the most I can to protect the public and y'all just be kind of mad at us than for us not to do anything and then we get backlash 6 months later being like, y'all didn't do enough. So thank you, Mayor Woodfin. Thank you to my colleagues for stepping up and taking the initiative. I know every city hasn't done this, and I do want people to know that New York and LA have done the same thing. So this isn't out of the ordinary what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a note, I know your colleagues are engaging in this discussion, but I want everybody to know what you have is the last version with the updates, and the other document is the red line, because I know many of you all appreciate that, so you can follow word for word what's been changed. So the more bold, bigger font is the actual last version, and the smaller print is your actual red line.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think when we all got here, we knew we would have to make decisions that were difficult and oftentimes potentially unpopular. And so I think that is part of what we do here. But at the same time, I think you have to be careful to not put a value on a life. And so when we're talking about lives, we kind of know that the economy is going to take a hit. It's unfortunate. But the quicker we can get through the crisis, part of that is having the required equipment and PPE for health responders. Part of it is making sure that our hospitals don't get overrun by too many people getting sick all at one time, flattening the curve. But I think it's action that we have to take. You wait another week, it could be too late. So I think we are, but like I said, just see, even within the state, the nation, you see different people taking different stances on it. A lot of people are valuing putting the economy or putting money over the lives of people, I think. And I think that's dangerous to one, lessen the importance or lessen the seriousness in which people should be taking this. And if I felt better about people almost respecting the recommendations, but there's been very little, I think, adjustment of lifestyle based on what we've asked people to do from this room, from what the county Department of Health officials have asked people to do. And I think, we've been on some of those calls and had some of those conversations with Dr. Wilson and other leaders, and they are very concerned. I think Councilor Hilliard summed it up, but they're very concerned about the lack of response that we've gotten from the public. And so people are just out business as usual. You look in, specifically here, people, I personally have changed, I've stopped playing basketball, for the last few weeks. And so you've got to make those adjustments and sacrifices, because the quicker we can get through this crisis, the shorter, time span, duration of it, the faster we can get back to business as usual. And so I think that's the goal. Everybody wants to get back to that. And I think when we do, hopefully some of the things that we've done, washing your hands more frequently, avoiding certain situations, cleaning door handles more often, some of those things I hope that we can carry forward. But I think we'll also hopefully have a greater appreciation, for what that means. I think Councilor Smitherman, talking to the generational piece, a lot of people have never seen anything like this, even in America on our own soil. We've seen these type of epidemics and crises from afar through the news, but to see it, and we don't necessarily need to wait till we have a lot of deaths happen here that we can see and feel and touch to take action. And so I think it's one of those things where we're all in it together on these type of issues when it comes to the public, the safety. And so we got to make sure that we in no way put money over the value of a life. And so I think that's a necessary sacrifice. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Mayor Woodfin. I think that it sounds like that my colleagues and I are all so far on the same page with this. I know that it is obviously a tough decision, knowing that this will curb the economic landscape within the city of Birmingham. But I think in the long run, as long as we as a city band together and actually abide by the recommendations of our health experts and of the Jefferson County Department of Health, we will have an opportunity to flatten that curve, hopefully in a shorter time than if we continue to do some activities and not others. So I think that this is a very tough decision, but what's in the best interest for the city of Birmingham. I want to, since there are some excluded businesses that are listed out in this, and then there's also a catch-all in this ordinance. I want to reiterate something that the mayor said, and it boils down to is if the business is open today and the business is not defined as one of the businesses not permissible to be open by the Jefferson County Department of Health, then the business under this ordinance in the city of Birmingham can continue to be open and has no impact, or this ordinance has no impact or bearing on that business.
That's correct.
So the following businesses that are all texting me and calling me as we speak on both of my phones, I want to be very explicitly clear. If you're a restaurant that is doing curbside pickup, you still can continue to do so as long as you do so within the confines of the Jefferson County Department of Health.
Correct.
If you're a law firm or in the legal profession, you can continue to provide your services and your employees can continue to go to your law firm as long as you're doing so within the confines of the Jefferson County Department of Health.
Correct.
Which, all this can change in a moment's notice. That will be the decision of the Jefferson County Department of Health. If you are in the insurance industry, the banking industry, or any of the other financial services that are texting me right now, you will be able to continue to operate as long as you are operating within the confines of what the Jefferson County Department of Health has outlined. So
Correct.
there is a lot of misinformation, mainly because, probably because a little bit of people are not actually reading the ordinance in its entirety, but there is going to be a catch-all. If you are operating today and doing so legally within the confines of the Jefferson County Department of Health, you may continue to operate tomorrow. Your employees can still show up for work tomorrow. They can travel to work tomorrow, and that does not change. What this ordinance does is it allows us to put a little bit more teeth into what the Jefferson County Department of Health is asking us to do, and it codifies it so our law enforcement can enforce it. So I want to be abundantly clear, because a lot of people are emailing me, texting me, calling me, whatnot. If you are operating today and doing so legally, you can continue to operate tomorrow, and this ordinance has no bearing on your business or the ability of your employees to show up at work tomorrow, the next day, through April 3rd at midnight.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Again, can't state what he said enough. If you're not on the non-essential list for the employer, you can continue your business, and for the employee, whatever is under the guise of your employer, I highly suggest that you listen to your employer.
All right, I'm going to ask Councilor Abbott and then Councilor Hoyt, and then I want to come back because I need to go down another list just to make sure we bring more clarity. Councilor Abbott, you're ready, or you need a little bit more time to look at the, okay.
Excuse me. And this is really, I think, confirming what Councilor Williams just said, but I want to be sure, because most of the people who called me were attorneys and financial managers, and you'd think that they would read this thing and it would be clear. So obviously it's not clear. So Section 1B, that's the one, and there's no page number, so.
It's page 3.
Section 1B, that's the one that people who are in business now need to look at and see that it applies to them. If the Jefferson County health officer or the state health officer says your business can't be open, that's all that matters.
Correct.
Nothing we've said in here applies to anybody that's open now unless they're open illegally.
Can you please say that again so we can make sure people heard you? I would like for everybody to continue to repeat what you just said. Matter of fact, let me help you. And she's on page 3 under section 1B, which states, all businesses within the city of Birmingham shall comply with the order of the Jefferson County Chief Health Officer as amended March 22nd, or as may be amended, relating to the closing of non-essential businesses. Another way put, if you are currently not on the non-essential list, your business can remain open and you can continue to provide that service and your employees can continue to work. Ms. Abbott?
Okay, but there's more to that paragraph. Businesses within the Shelby County portion of the city shall comply with the orders of the state health officer. I think we can take who and the comma out of that one, because then it gets confusing if it still has that in there.
Yes.
And the last sentence,
Mr. Frazier?
says that the restrictions are prohibited. And the restrictions are not prohibited, so I think the word prohibited needs to be taken out. It's like the fourth word in that sentence. The restrictions detailed in the orders of the Jefferson County Health Officer and the State Health Officer are hereby adopted as restrictions by this ordinance. Because if the restrictions were prohibited, it wouldn't make any sense. Right?
Yes, ma'am, we're on it.
Okay, one other little thing. In C, the next paragraph, all public and private gatherings of 10 or more persons or of any size where a consistent distance of at least 6 feet cannot be maintained are prohibited. Because if you don't have the word "are" in there, it doesn't make any sense either.
We see it. Thank you.
But if the average person reads section 1B and C, we ought to be okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mayor, how are we, when we talk about the most vulnerable of the crisis we have in Birmingham proper, what group are we saying? I just,
There's two large groups, sir. That's a great question. We know that I believe over 80% of the deaths of those who've died across the globe have been people 65 plus. So you relate that to the city of Birmingham, 22% of our population. So that's either on one end, a minimum of 1/5 of every resident that lives in our city, or close to 1/4 of people that live in Birmingham city limits are 60 years age plus. So we have a very high, we have a large elderly population or older population in our city. In addition to that, I don't have to remind anybody, and you remind us all the time, about some of the health disparities in the state of Alabama and Jefferson County. In Alabama always being ranked 48th and 49th as far as the health issues. And then even in Jefferson County, having some of the highest health issues of all 67 counties. You talk about these underlying issues of respiratory/lung, these underlying issues of diabetes, heart, and many other current and or any immune deficiencies that we have. We're highly susceptible to people in this community who are either by age or by existing health conditions, which is extremely high. I don't have that number memorized like I do our elder population. We're talking about a significant amount of people of the 211,000 residents who live in this city.
yeah, because based on the information that I received, and and I got the text and got the, like everybody else here, but they were saying that 22% of the persons who are hospitalized are between the age of 20 and 44.
Yes, sir.
So it should be no misnomer about who this affects. That's the point that I want to make. Because sometimes we think because we're younger, we're not susceptible. But this doesn't have an age limit. So just wanted to say that. And you talked about, and let me just say, this is good, what we consider today. I think we have to do something. Certainly appreciate your leadership in this and all those who've had an opportunity to work towards this end. And I think, restrictions have to be employed. Now, I'm not sure, and I don't think New York has a curfew, to my knowledge. I'm just saying they don't have a curfew, but they do have some restrictions in place, and I want us to be mindful of that as well. And then at some point, and I know we said we don't want to wait till other folk get on board and what have you, but at some point, I like to see us working in tandem with Jefferson County Commission, because whatever they're doing is what we ought to be doing, because it's a wider net. We don't want to work in a silo, because I think if we have some continuity, then people are not going to be confused about where they need to be and this or that and what have you. And right now, we got 36 municipalities?
30 plus.
30 plus, right. And so what we don't want to burden anybody in the unincorporated areas, and because all this has to be communicated, it has to be shared, and so I would want at some point, Mr. Mayor, for us to sit down with Jefferson County and develop a document too, that because if it's a crisis, it doesn't matter where it is.
Right.
It's a crisis for all of us, and we always talk about this big union. I think I heard people talking about, we ought to be just one big place and what have you. Well, in this case, we are. with Jefferson County. And it's important that Jefferson County, because not everybody who lives in Birmingham, work in Birmingham, lives in Birmingham.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of confusion about that. And so that's why I'm saying I think it would be prudent if we sat down with Jefferson County collectively and decided on some of this that we're trying to employ. So that's all I had, Mr. President, but I just think that's where we are.
Mr. President, just a couple notes to you and all your
Mr. Mayor,
colleagues.
if you'll hold on. You'll let Council Abbott, she had another question in her first round.
Can I
Okay,
finish?
so we'll,
Sorry.
okay, Council, we'll let you finish and we'll go.
And
Council
Mr.
Abbott had one other item and then we'll circle back.
And about nonprofits, because there are a lot of nonprofits that provide essential services. And so they need to be included in this list of essentials. You know, there's folks getting counseling.
Yes, sir.
We still got mental health, whether we have a crisis or not. Folks still got to come in and get they talk, and whatever. So we just need to make sure that we include nonprofits. So if that could be amended to add nonprofits, I think we'd be fine.
Sir, I think the safety net that Councilor Hoyt is referring to exists. Jefferson County Health Department has a list that they've shared with us, and they've since amended their list, and they keep us updated on what's deemed essential versus non-essential. If an organization is currently not on the non-essential list, then they're open. This does not apply to any nonprofits that are currently providing services out here. They are open today. They were open after Dr. Mark Wilson's ordinance and order. They will remain open tomorrow.
Well, I hadn't seen the list, so it helped me to see the list.
Yes, sir. So the list we're referring to is there's a non-essential list that exists. So if your style of business or type of business is not on the non-essential list, then you can continue to operate in the city limits of Birmingham. In addition to that, I will tell you, Dr. Mark Wilson has been a great communicator. He's been, I know, at least 2 calls. The second call yesterday, the first call was last week, where he engaged every county commissioner and every mayor in the county by roll call before he went into conversation about updates. He wasn't the only one on the phone. It's a team of medical and health experts throughout Jefferson County. But the conversation was led by him, with those experts chiming in on recommendations to every mayor and all 5 county commissioners in Jefferson County. On that call also included various leaders as it relates to law enforcement, whether by legal department and or chief of staff and or police chief on that call as well, where the health department continues to provide daily information to leaders across the county. Information I'm usually sharing with y'all is coming directly from the health experts, not from me.
Councilor Abbott had one other follow-up to her question she forgot.
Yeah, and I think this might be an organizational thing of this ordinance, but 1D says all travel.
What page are you on?
It's, well.
That same page where she had prohibited.
Section 1D, okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Okay, 1E says that 1D. All travel, including without limitation travel on foot, bicycle, scooter, motorcycle, automobile, or public transit is prohibited, subject to the exceptions further provided in subsection E of this ordinance. I was just wondering if that could be put after the first 24-hour allowance and the essential activities, because when you read D, you think you're shutting down public transit? You know, it sounds like no one can ever get in a vehicle again, and then it goes through the reasons that you could. But if someone were to not get to the next part, they would think that we were not going to allow anybody to travel by any means. All travel is prohibited, is what D says. But then E, it has some exceptions. I don't know, I just found it, when I read that all travel, I thought, holy heck. And then reading on, it wasn't nearly as dire as it sounded.
So what you like to do is, at the proper time, just kind of, we can wait and let everybody make the comments and we'll come back.
Maybe it could say subject to the exceptions in E below or something, because when it just says all travel is prohibited, that just threw me for a loop. And I would think that unless we say subject to the following exceptions and start it out that way, it just hits you that, well, it doesn't say that in the one I've got. It says, as exceptions further provided in this subsection of the ordinance, but if it just started out with...
I think what you're seeing is we're trying to be in alignment. So last Monday, I issued by proclamation declaring a city of emergency. And then under the City of Birmingham, Section 12.531C and D of the General Code, the City of Birmingham, to limit gatherings on public ways or public property, prohibit or regulate travel. I think what you're trying to see is some alignment between the actual ordinance you're passing and what I've done in my office, which under this allows for the regulation of travel. This is giving you the exceptions so people can get from point A to B for essential goods and services, for pharmacy, to work, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that I would reorganize that paragraph to say, subject to the exceptions further provided in subsection E of this ordinance, all travel is prohibited. You know, so that they would know
you
that...
want this where?
No, I'm just saying that, you know, the little clause at the end of that sentence, subject to the exceptions further provided in subsection E of this ordinance, comma, and then say all travel, including without limitation, is prohibited, then it doesn't sound like that just cuts off all travel.
No worries. So what we can do is, if you can repeat that so she can capture what you're saying and we can make that change.
You want me to send you a text?
That'll be fine, and what we'll do is right before, once we complete it, we'll just walk back through if there are any changes and
Yeah,
walk
all
back
it does is just take that clause
I
and move it to
understand.
the beginning.
Okay, well, we just want to make sure.
That subject to clause.
Okay.
It just
All right.
puts it at the front so that when someone reads that, they're just not horrified and they quit reading.
Okay, all right, so Councilor Hoyt, we're going to go back to you. You had one more issue, and then we'll start back. Then we'll come back, start with Dr. O'Quinn again, and do another round to make sure we've gotten everything. So Councilor Hoyt, you're just finishing up on your first set.
Yeah,
You
so
have one other question.
I
and then
just
we'll
looked
go to
at
Dr.
the,
O'Quinn.
at Jefferson County, and so, they didn't have nonprofit as a, non-essential, so I guess if it doesn't appear on that non-essential, then it's okay for them to operate.
Yes, sir.
I just want to be clear on that.
Yes, sir.
The other thing is, this ordinance speaks to all citizens, and everybody around this day is a citizen. They just happen to be counselors, and so there needs to be an exception with respect to the counselors.
It is, sir. I'll show it to
Okay.
you. You are the exception
Government.
on
and
page
government-
page 3 under section 1, number 7. Persons employed by the federal, state, and county or city government or their agencies working within the course and scope of their public service employment. This shall not apply.
Okay, very good. Okay.
Okay. All right, real quick, I want to just ask a couple of things and just yes or no, because a couple of residents are asking as far as food providers. Mr. Powell asked about that, and I don't know if this is, they just left a message so I don't know if they're taking food to loved ones or whatever, so
So
I just want to make sure that they read it and they were.
there are
it was
two points to remember. Let me find it for you. I think it's really important that when you say something that I can show people in the ordinance how that's the exception. 1 second, sir. I apologize.
No problem. That's what I just wanted to.
Here it is. This shall not apply to any travel. I'm sorry. Page 4, under section 2, essential activities, and it is under A. Any additional travel related to providing care for minors, the elderly, dependents, persons with disabilities, or vulnerable persons.
Okay.
So that is the ability, if you want to provide a food service, even from the example, one of the first calls I got was from the superintendent. You know, school is out. They currently have a distribution process they have to provide lunch service. That falls under essential services because they're providing food. Very similar to the question the neighborhood officer has.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Okay, let me go through a couple more and just yes or no. Received a call from some of the hotels with their workers, I guess, and others affiliated with the hotels. Where are they?
Because they're not on the non-essential list, they continue, that employer as a hotel continue to operate their business, and their
Okay.
employees continue to show up to work.
Okay, nursing home, and I know you mentioned public employees, but some of these private nursing homes where people are working at nursing home facilities, or if you're going to visit.
The only regulation of nursing homes at this point, and that came federally first, is the limit of visitation. They are still open to essential personnel, i.e. the employees that actually work at the nursing home need to continue to show up and provide service to those residents of that nursing home.
Would that be, I guess, under number 2 where it says public health workers? Is that where they kind of, just want to try to make sure we get clarity on
You
it.
give me 1 second, sir. I'll
Okay.
give it.
And I got one or two
I'll
more.
read it out loud.
Okay. I mean, I just want to make sure. And if we need to come back, we can on that.
No, it's
Okay.
so you have it. I think you have at least one place, but I think you have a possible second place. The first
Well, I
place
saw
you
public
have it.
health workers, I didn't know if it.
Yes.
Okay, that's where, okay,
Yes,
that's
I believe
on
that is
page.
page 3
Yep.
under section.
The curfew shall not apply to first responders, crisis intervention workers, public health workers, but if it's a privately owned,
Now, it should be
I just want to make sure, just,
B,
it's clarified, that's all.
number 6 on B. Subsection, oh, that's the E, I'm sorry, E number 6.
That's correct. The answer is yes. They are exempt.
Okay, all right, one other, those in the real estate, I mean,
Exempt.
brokers exempt, where, is that, it will fall under,
Number 6.
It's just exempt.
Okay.
It falls under B.
Okay.
Because they're not on the current non-essential list. They're open today. They're open tomorrow.
all right, we're just getting, so people that are listening can go and look at it within the ordinance. So, what we're gonna do is, Dr. Quinn will start, I guess, our next round, and if you don't have anything to say, pass. I just want to give everybody an opportunity just to go one more time, okay? I see everybody's faces, so hopefully we'll be wrapping this up, but I do want to give everybody an opportunity to, if they need a follow-up question, so. Dr. Quinn?
Yes, thank you. So I wrote a few questions down. First one is the ordinance required to grant legal authority to law enforcement to address and break up the types of gatherings we observed over the weekend?
Yes. That falls on the last page. That falls on the last page.
So currently, as it stands right now, our law enforcement officers can't go into Marconi Park and break up the basketball game that's happening there right now. Is that correct?
The truth is they could because of the current Jefferson County health ordinance. But this is explicitly saying do it. We are now saying in our city limits, do not have these activities, group activities, where there's contact. And we want you to comply with that. I am more than confident, y'all, that majority of the people in this city always comply with the things you all enact. Every now and then you have a person that doesn't want to. There is police power provided in this from an enforcement standpoint that allows our police to move to disperse activity that is deemed promoting community spread of the coronavirus.
Okay, my second question is, what is the penalty? And I did a little research over on this while during the break. This would be
city ordinance is a violation. So you have felony, then you have misdemeanor, then you have violation. As a city ordinance, a violation has, again, let me answer the question. It is a violation. So it is not a felony, it is not a misdemeanor. It's a violation of a city ordinance. A violation max penalty is up to 30 days in jail and $500. I don't think we'll have to get there at all, because I'm more than confident that the more we talk about this and speak to this as elected officials and all the leaders throughout this community at any level, neighborhood leaders, faith leaders, principals, parents, everyone will take this seriously enough to make sure there's compliance, because the goal is to save lives.
okay, and then final couple of questions, and I apologize, as these are kind of rhetorical questions, but I think we need to get this point across to the public. Is it safe to say that this ordinance is aimed at people who are acting as though there is no public health crisis, and that this is not aimed at people who are doing the right thing?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. I think every now and then there's an opportunity. Again, all of us have seen it. I just want to point out the last 2 Saturdays and the last 2 Sundays. Each of us have had the ability at some point to get into our vehicle. The 9 of you all drive in your districts and visibly see the opposite of what's being recommended from the Jefferson County Health Department. You've seen it with your own eyes. You've had some form of a cringe inside. You've probably shared some type of explicit in your head, like, why is that behavior happening? Again, 11, 12 days in, moving from not having any cases to now having a minimum of 45 people at one hospital. One, it's just one hospital. That doesn't count the other hospitals. We now have to enforce a new normal as it relates to making sure we take every measure to prevent community spread.
Just to follow up, so this, as it stands currently, you've said this several times already, this ordinance is aligned with the current Jefferson County Department of Health order that is out there.
100%.
Okay, so if Jefferson County Department of Health imposes further restrictions,
we will follow suit.
Okay.
We will follow suit. I think it is important at this point, since none of us are epidemiologists, except on social media sometime apparently. I trust the health experts. I think their priority is the same as our priority, to save lives, to prevent a run on our hospitals, to prevent community spread, to stop community spread, to flatten the curve, and in some form, shape, or way, to repeat this enough that everybody embraces it.
Thank you, Mr. President, for that, and thank you, Councilor O'Quinn, for reiterating that. I think as much as people can hear this, this all should continue to apply. I had a former colleague, Commissioner Tyson, called me a couple of days ago, and she said, John, you should go down to Phillips High School across the street where the park is. She said that they were out there playing baseball, barbecuing, playing checkers, and just moving like there was actually nothing happening. So after I left my president, I drove by there because I wanted to see it with my own eyes. And it was just like a holiday. They were just moving and having a good time. That alone is what this ordinance is all about.
It is.
We have to affect that type of thing. And that's what, I know that's what you're getting at, Mayor, and I really appreciate you addressing that, because it's important that the public understand that we're not trying to stop the working people from going to work. What we're trying to stop is this gathering in another restaurant owner called me. He said down across from one of the clubs downtown, there's a parking lot. It was on a Saturday. He said, you should go by there. Drove by there. A bunch of kids out partying, they didn't park their cars out, just having a good time. And, you know, and this is what this ordinance is all about.
Yes, sir.
It's all about addressing gatherings. You know, we should, I think by now everybody knows that the contact is what spreads this disease and what's going on now. I wanted to say this, and I know you've already covered it. We've already talked about the legal community. They're covered here. The real estate community is covered in this. They wanted me to say that.
Yes, sir.
Out of my mouth.
Yes, sir.
The real estate industry is covered.
Yes, sir.
So that's a good thing, and I'm very happy that they are all about that. So, Councilman President Parker, I appreciate you mentioning that, but I want to keep reiterating it so to go over and over and over. And we're in a critical stage, a crisis. I've had seniors in my neighborhood called me right after we got out of this meeting. They started texting me their word, and I've told them, don't open your door for anybody that's not wearing a mask, that don't have on gloves. They delivered some food to one of my neighbor's house from one of the food delivery companies. And the lady told the gentleman, sit the box on the porch. And he said, well, can I bring it in? She said, no. He said, why? She said, you don't have on a mask and gloves. You're not taking it serious. And he called me and told me what she said. And I told him, that's right. He said, let her know that I will be wearing my mask and gloves and I will be protecting myself. And that's the type of behavior that this piece of legislation would bring about that we're working on. So I want to say to all my colleagues, I know we keep talking, but we're trying to drill it into the open community so they'll know that we want to head off what's happening in Italy, what happened in China. They've given us the blueprint. All we have to do is follow it, and we possibly making stop this tsunami that's about to hit us. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Hilliard, we are going to continue with giving each counselor an opportunity to be sure that all of their questions are clarified. The president has stepped away for a minute. So I did just want to, for my particular comments, I do want to thank you again for the clarifications. I did receive just a thank you from one of the people that had asked the questions relative to the food services and the grab and go. So thanks for clarifying that
Can I
for
say
us.
something?
Yes.
If anybody has any questions you're getting right now in text, email, you could please just bring them right now. We can literally just get it out.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Smitherman? All right. Mr. Woods?
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. Definitely did want to just call on the media as well. I think we're all kind of getting clarity on what we need to do is getting the message out, but definitely as much help as we can get doing that with just making sure people know no new businesses will be closed as a result of this, and basically we'll stay in that line with the Department of Health is doing. But you know, I think it's just getting that information out. So like I said, I think everybody kind of, I guess when you hear shelter in place, lockdown, like that means something different in every place. And so kind of hearing what's been going on nationally, a lot of people responded to that right off the bat. So it's almost good and incredible foresight by President Parker to bring us back here this evening so we could make sure that we got the messaging out. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. Same comments as before. You can rewind the tape. But just since we're all repeating ourselves over and over again, which hopefully we will vote in the next 5 minutes, but since we're all repeating ourselves, law firms, legal services, insurance companies, banking, and other similar financial institutions who are still texting me will still be permissible to operate as long as you were doing so within the confines of the Jefferson County Department of Health tomorrow as you are today.
Yes, sir.
Let's vote.
We have some other people that need to speak. Councilor Abbott and,
I've already spoken my 3 minutes, thank you.
okay, Dr. Hoyt.
I don't have anything further to say, sir.
He spoke his 3 minutes too.
Okay. All right, good. Mr. Mayor, have anything to close out, or?
I do. What we're doing is hard for, it goes against human nature because we're all by definition social creatures. We want to connect with folk. We want to touch. We want to hug. We want to kiss. We want to play. But I am convinced, based on what Councilor Wood said, if we make the tough, hard decision now and hunker down, then the faster we can get back to our normal way of life. If we choose not to act and think that things can just be fine, and these numbers tick up, then this economy everybody's worried about, as much as all of us are, what's the matter if the people aren't here to invest in that economy, want to be successful? So I want to thank you all, and I really mean that from the bottom of my heart, and I want to thank the citizens that are listening to this, that this is not just about elected officials. As Councilor Hilliard said this afternoon, I thought was very, very powerful. Everybody needs to be a committee of one and take responsibility for taking it seriously and be extremely intentional about practicing social distancing. And we're well beyond recommending at this point. We are enforcing. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Yes, sir. All right, this is, Mr. Clark, item number 91. So we're going to do that as an addendum, or do you see which one is better? Mr. Clark? Which one is better? Just, okay, just hear a motion.
I move approval as
Second.
amended.
Okay. Councilor Abbott, Councilor Williams. Ready to vote.
Mr. Clark is yes for me.
Okay, all right. Item passes unanimously. Just want to remind everybody that in the morning, 9:30, have 1 or 2 matters to take up.
I
Yes,
just
sir,
want to
Dr.
ask, because I was asked this before the meeting, but Mr. Clark, this item, this ordinance that we just passed, did not require unanimous consent because it is not an item of permanent operation. Is that
That's
correct?
not the situation.
All right.
Is
I just
Attorney
wanted to
Bernard
say that for the
clarified?
record.
As Attorney Bernard clarified, this general ordinance, permanent operation will require the item to be changed at a later point in time. It will automatically take care of itself, so it's not a permanent operation item, it's a general operation. So it's also an addendum item. Therefore, it doesn't need UC because it's on the agenda for us as an addendum item. If it was not on the agenda, then we would do it as a UC because we haven't seen it before.
All right, good. 9:30 in the morning.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed.
Sorry.
What are we doing at 9:30?
Breakfast in the morning.
Yeah,
We're done with that meeting. Second,
It's just been a long day.
I know John, if he had So to adopt. Boom.
And it's on my calendar for me because that's the standard.
All right. All right. Okay. Oh, this is great. Thank you. Thank you. Hello? Okay. All right. Hey, just in council meeting, just what's going on with it? Yeah. Oh, who is it? Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. I'll tell you what, call me. I'll call you back in a few minutes. Let me get out of here. I'll call you back.